Chucky. We're going to be talking about why Chucky deserves to be on the Mount Rushmore of slasher killers. I'm going to break things down, tell you my thoughts, my examples, everything about Chucky that makes him awesome. And then you can let me know in the comments if you agree that Chucky should be in the Mount Rushmore. Kicking off the Mount Rushmore, everybody usually has, for slashers, Michael, Freddy, and Jason. After that, there is an opening, and there's many people who could fit into it. But I'm going to tell you why it deserves to be Chucky. Starting off with the most important fact of all. Chucky's been going with the same storyline for 35 years. That's right, back in 1988, Child's Play 1 came out, and they spanned 7 movies. And since then, we have also had 2 seasons of Chucky, and we're going to be getting a 3rd one this year. It's already been filmed, and they're anticipating to have it all set and ready to go. Even though there is that big Hollywood strike going on this year, they still plan on having Chucky Season 3, which is awesome. Biggest other reason is the kills. Chucky, over the course of all the movies and the TV shows, he has spanned 76 kills by my count. I could be off by a couple, but I'm only including his kills and nobody else's. And I know 76 not really that high of a number when you have Michael, who is at like 170 something, and Jason's at like 150. But it's not just the number of kills that he has, it's how he does the killing. Chucky is one of the most inventive when it comes to doing the killing. I mean, he uses knives, he uses voodoo dolls, he chokes people, he smothers people, he drops people on their head so they break their neck. He convinces other people to kill. He gets people to actually kill themselves. He's done vomiting, electrocution, toy factory eye scene, just from the second one. And every movie seems to have a pretty awesome kill in it. The first one kind of doesn't have as much, but the voodoo kill is pretty awesome, where he breaks the guy's arm, then breaks his leg, and stabs him directly in the chest. Then you have the second movie, where I think the best kill is definitely the guy gets his throat slit, falls onto the conveyor belt, and then gets 2 good guy doll eyes shoved into his eyes. The third one, I would say, that's a tough one actually in the third one, but I really do like the presto, you dead, when he slices the barber's neck with the razor blade. And the fourth one, there's a lot of fun kills, but I generally do like watching John Ritter get a bunch of nails into his face. Even in Seed of Chucky, the one that most people dislike, you have the acid pouring on the guy's face. It looks awesome. I know that one wasn't his, but it's still a memorable kill in the movie. And then most of the Chucky kills in that one actually aren't very good. I'll give it that. Curse of Chucky, we do have the one where he tells the woman that her eyes are just like her mother's. They're too far apart, and stabs her in them. I love that kill. In Cult of Chucky, I am a huge fan of him dropping the compressor tank on the ground, and it shoots up and hits the glass in the ceiling and drops down and decapitates that girl, slices her all up into pieces. I think that's a really awesome kill, and they do it in slow motion. And even in Chucky Season 1, you had some fun kills. I really loved him setting the knives up and the maid falling onto the stack of knives that were there. And then in this newest iteration, we had the buff Chucky. I liked when he punched right through that guy's heart and just kind of ripped it out. I thought that was a cool kill. But you see, there's a big variety of kills. I mean, he had that one guy walk out in traffic in Bride of Chucky and get hit. He's convinced Tiffany to kill. He convinced Junior to kill in the show. He's just very, very good, I guess, in that sense. That's why he's a good guy now. Alright, number 3 for me, for a good reason why he deserves to be on the Mount Rushmore, is he's just a cold-blooded killer. He loves killing. It's what he's done his entire life. We started to get a backstory in Chucky season 1 and season 2. And it was a little bit scary wondering what they were going to do, because for most horror movies, when you get a backstory, especially this late in the story, they can really send it for a loop. But they did this one good. They just proved that he's been a cold-blooded killer his entire life. It's what he does. It's what he knows. And he's not apologetic for it. There wasn't a bad upbringing that made him become bad. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Michael Myers from Rob Zombie. It's one of those things where you don't really want the backstory, but they're going to give it to you anyways. And at least in this situation, it's not a bad one. So he's just been a cold-blooded killer his whole life. And even when he finally gets the chance to be in somebody's body in seat of Chucky, he declines, because he's happy being Chucky the Killer Doll, who's infamous in horror and in real life for that movie. Alright, number 4 for me is going to be the Voodoo. In the movies, the first one, they used Voodoo, which Don Mancini, the writer, was not a giant fan of the Voodoo idea, but he stuck with it, and he's used the Voodoo ever since. He's always stuck with the Voodoo. He's used it as a crutch at times, but the Voodoo allows him to do more fun things and play around a lot. And I think the Voodoo is used well for the most part. In a couple of movies, it's kind of lazy, but it still gets us to where we can do new things, like as we see in Cult of Chucky now. He can go into other dolls. He can be in more than one place at once. He can actually take over a human body. And then in the season 1 and 2, they really play into that. I mean, you get him in, I think they said it's like 75 dolls. When that bus goes off the cliff with Andy inside of it. But there's just, there's like the Colonel Chucky, there's then a buff Chucky. So they're also moving on to the lore of Chucky. They're giving him different iterations. Besides, just the different looking dolls throughout the movie. So I thought that was kind of a neat way to kind of include the Voodoo and keep it going, because a lot of people do really like the Voodoo aspect about Chucky, and the writer wasn't a big fan of it, but he stuck with it. The next thing I'm going to say is the cult aspect. Not just a cult following in real life, but the movie Cult was very decisive movie. People loved it, or people didn't really like it a lot. But this introduced the fact that you can have multiple Chuckies running around. And then in the show, like I said, you had armies of Chucky dolls. And it's a neat little concept, because originally it was, one doll, and all these different dolls still are voiced by the same guy. So you don't get a bunch of oddball dolls that act funny or weird. You might get a little bit different tone in the voice, or maybe a little bit of an accent, but it's still the same guy. And that whole idea that now you can have a Chucky in multiple towns across America just torturing people, and they all have kind of the same mentality, that they are the cold-blooded killers. Alright, the next thing for me is going to be the cast. When you think of Chucky and around him, but Chucky himself, Brad Dourif, he has played the voice of Chucky in every single movie and the seasons. The only one withstanding is the remake, but that's not part of this Chucky. Overall, you really can't get it much better than him on the voice. It's iconic. People hear it, they know it. I mean, my wife does not like Chucky. She doesn't like doll movies. And if I'm in another room watching Chucky, she's like, turn that crap off. I don't want to hear it, because she can recognize Chucky's voice. So that makes it very, very iconic. And then Brad Dourif playing the character. He was Charles Lee Ray. He's done Charles Lee Ray in more than one movie, because he was in Curse. But him himself, he has been around doing this the whole entire time, and he's never wavered. It's something that he's always been proud of, and something that he's always done. And then jumping on the piggyback of that is the rest of the cast, including Don Mancini, who wrote the original, And then he wrote 2, he wrote 3, he wrote 4. Finally, when you get to Seed, he was able to be the director. So now he has been directing and writing everything since that point. In this TV show, there are some other people directing, but he's still the main person in control of this Chucky universe. So having somebody who's also been tied to this for well over 35 years, because clearly this concept came out before the movie, but then you have the Brad Dourif, Fiona Dourif, his daughter came in Curse of Chucky, and she's been there ever since, and she's been a great addition. I mean, she plays Charles Lee Ray's younger version in the TV show, and she does a great job of being Charles Lee Ray. She has to play her character possessed by Chucky, which she does a great job in doing that as well. Her acting is phenomenal. If you ask me, I don't know how she hasn't gotten more parts or more recognition, because she does awesome. Jennifer Tilly as Tiffany in Bride of Chucky and every movie since that point she's had a part in, and the seasons. I think she does a great job. Tiffany was one of the best additions you could do to a series that was kind of wondering where it was going to go after the third one, because it was kind of wash, rinse, repeat from 1 to 2 to 3. They was always going after Andy Barclay. But then they swerved in another direction, and they were able to elevate it and keep it going. And including that, we have Andy Barclay. Andy Barclay, the kid that he was trying to steal the soul of so he could have possession of Andy's body in parts 1 and 2, and in 3. 3 doesn't go after him, he goes after Tyler, but still, he's in those 3. And then he disappears. And then you see a small cameo in Curse, and then he's back in Cult and both seasons of Chucky. And the only movie that Andy's in that does not have this same actor is the third one, because it did a little time jump. But to have that same actor come back and then also star in it again, because it was something he clearly missed or enjoyed, or maybe just needed a payday. But still, it shows that Don Mancini has a way of getting all these people to buy in and come back. I mean, you see it over and over and over again in this series. Even the main 3 kids from season 1 came back for season 2, and they'll all be back for season 3. Kyle from Child's Play 2, which was a beloved character, came back when the show started. The same actress coming back to play the same role. It's just kind of like that family mentality, and that's what they always talk about in interviews and stuff, is how it's like a family, and they all love working for Don Mancini, and everybody loves this whole Chucky universe and what's going on in it. So having that whole setup is pretty good. Another thing that I'm going to say is the envelope pushing that Don Mancini has done, because in interviews and on record, Don Mancini is a gay man. And in Seed of Chucky, we had the he, she, they, them type character where Glenn didn't know if he was a boy or a girl. A lot of people might have hated that at the time, but that was one of those very first transgender type roles. And horror lets you push the envelope on stuff, and Don Mancini has done that as well. I mean, in Chucky season 1, we're introduced to Jake, and Jake likes Devin, and they end up being a couple. So there's the gay aspect in the show. But the way that Don Mancini puts it in the show is that this is who they are. It's not like in some movies or TV shows where you feel like it's just kind of being shoved down your throat and they're there to push the envelope. It's written smooth, it's written smart, it's just there. It's there, but it's not overwhelmingly there. So it's like he hits that perfect balance of how can I throw some stuff in there that is near and dear to my heart without upsetting all the fans, especially the horror fans, because some horror fans are a little bit, this is my thing and this is the way I like it, not this way. And we saw that obviously when the Child's Play remake came out, because there was a huge camp who was refusing to watch the remake because it didn't have Brad Dourif. That's not my Chucky. The doll looks different, and the doll does look different, and it's not a very good different, but it's just the fact that he takes those chances. The next thing I'm going to throw out there is Chucky, on top of the transgender stuff, is a doll, a killer doll, who we've seen get married and have sex and have a kid. Yeah, that's not something you always see in a horror icon. Did Michael Myers go around doing those things? No. Jason? No. Freddy? No. Leatherface, I mean, he really liked the girls to an extent, maybe because he wanted to wear their skin. We did have Leprechaun. Leprechaun tried to get married, didn't work out for him, so then he ran away to Vegas, like all men do when they get shot down like that. And then eventually he went to the hood, but he did stop in space first, so you never know what you're gonna get. But most of horror killers that have spanned movies, you don't see them get married and have children. It's not normal. But Chucky did it, and they made it work. And Glenn Glenda, the character in Seed, was one of the more hated characters at the time. But then when season 2 was coming out and people saw they were going to get Glenn and Glenda back, everybody was so pumped to see who was doing this. Were they going to get it? What's going on? Is the doll coming back too? Perfect. Awesome. Like, everybody hated it when it happened. But then when the time came to reintroduce it, it's like they have been waiting their whole life for something. And that just kind of shows, like, that part of their writing. Like, Chucky can literally do anything. And he's awesome at it. The other thing that I give these movies and the TV show credit for is that almost every movie, besides, like, the first ones, though, is different. Like, the first one is different because you don't know who the killer is, whether it's Andy doing it or is it Chucky. And then in the second one, you just get full-board Chucky coming after him, trying to kill him in the end. And you get, like, Psycho Chucky. In the third one, you have Chucky just so happy to get another shot at it, and he has so many one-liners, he kind of pushes the envelope. 4 becomes a horror comedy when you introduce Bride. Seed is like a family drama horror. Curse is then like a haunted house. Cult takes place in like an asylum type setup. And then you introduce the whole cult aspect of it. And then the TV show, almost every episode is a different flavor. And it has a lot of throwbacks to a lot of horror legends or old movies, old directors, stuff like that. So it has like this whole huge flavor about it. And that's what's nice about Chucky, is you get something different in every movie. And you almost get something different in every episode of the show. And when they do it, they pretty much nail it for every single one. Like I said, a lot of people think Seed is the worst one. I still think Seed is a very enjoyable movie. And it's one of those movies that, like, I can put it on and I still have a very good time with it. And even if I was rating it out of like 5, I still would give it over a 3, which makes it more than an average movie. And if that's the worst one in your series, then you've pretty much nailed what you're going for. Another thing is that Chucky balances humor and horror very well. In the first one, it's very straightforward horror. In the second one, you get lots of horror with a little bit of comedy. And then in the third one, you get a little bit more comedy, and then you get the horror, and then you get a lot of comedy in 4 and 5. And in the show, they really balance horror and comedy well, so that you're getting your scares, you're getting your kills, you're getting your dreaded moments, you're getting your drama in your story, but you're also getting good laughs. And these are laughs that actually land. Maybe it's because the doll kicking his legs is hilarious, but I love that stuff, and it's one of those little added touches that they do that make this seem more realistic and more fun with this doll. Special effects, I mentioned. I mean, just watching the doll on screen in movies and stuff, yeah, there's been a couple of hiccups here and there. The first movie had a few hiccups because it was 1988. I mean, come on. They only had so much to their disposal. And the TV show, some of the CGI has not looked the most phenomenal, but overall, the special effects are really good for having a doll that is going around murdering people. I mean, if it was a person doing it, that's a lot easier to make happen because people act. But to have 4 to 5 people controlling an animatronic doll and making it look as if it's there by itself, all doing it, I give them hats off to that. And then the character development, obviously all these people have stuck around forever, so there is great character development for each one. A lot of characters get arcs. Some get even more than one arc throughout the run of it because they stick around for so long. All right, the next thing that I'm going to do is talk about pop culture. So Chucky is mainstream in horror. That's why he deserves to be on this Mount Rushmore, because he exceeds horror. You don't have to be a fan of horror to know who Chucky is. Everybody knows Chucky. You see him everywhere. I mean, literally in my room right now that I'm in, I have Chucky on a cup. I have Chucky on a candle. I have Chucky on a t-shirt. I have Chucky on a poster. I have Chucky painting done by my buddy Dustin. He hand painted this himself. I had him do it because Chucky is my favorite horror killer of all time. And that's just stuff I have in here. If you look out in the real world, there is a crap ton of paintings of Chucky, tattoos of Chucky, cosplay of Chucky. Men dress up as Chucky. Women dress up as Chucky. Men and women couples dress up as Chucky and Tiffany. You have people who get Chucky tattoos on their body. You see t-shirts. You see posters. He's made his way into The Simpsons, Family Guy. He was even on a Titantron on WWE. He literally is everywhere, and he's transcended that you have to be a fan of horror to know him. You just have to be alive on this planet to know who Chucky is. And it doesn't take anything more than that. He is the biggest killer doll there ever has been. I mean, Annabelle is not as big as Chucky. Even this new Megan movie that came out, like, people are like, that's better than the Child's Play remake. It's like, yeah, maybe it was, but still not better than fucking Chucky. There's nothing better than Chucky when it comes to killer dolls. And even smaller creatures and characters who kill, Chucky's still the best. Like I mentioned Leprechaun earlier. Leprechaun had some good jokes, but Leprechaun didn't have that very good of movies. Like, I have guilty pleasures with, like, 2 of the movies. The first and the third. And I don't mind the second one. But other than that, like, the rest of the series kind of sucks. And him as a killer, I mean, he's got some special powers, and it's kind of fun what they do. But he doesn't live up to Chucky. And Annabelle is just a demon possession. Megan is AI gone wrong. The voodoo aspect really helps. And it giving him a voice. It's a human being the voice. And that's another one of the things about Chucky is he has great lines in all the movies. Like, even the very iconic first movie when she goes to check the batteries and there's nothing there and his head spins around. He's like, "Hi, I'm Chucky, wanna play?" Like, it's such a doll-like voice. But then he turns into that, "You stupid bitch, you filthy slut. I'll teach you to fuck with me." And he gets that real anger behind his voice. And then in the second one, it's just full bore of him with anger. And then you see that going forward. And then you get the one-liners like in the third one. Like the "Presto, you're dead," and "Don't fuck with the Chuck." And a lot of good stuff. And then also, when it comes to horror movies, and you have a series this long, the main villain dies, right? Well, who has better deaths and reiterations than Chucky? In the first movie, he's burned, his arm shot off, his leg is shot off, his head shot off, and the guy still keeps coming till he gets shot in the heart. In the second one, he ends up getting his hand caught, rips it off, and shoves a knife in place of it. Ends up getting his leg stapled to a board from the hair stapling at the plant. Then he gets a hose put in his mouth full of plastic that makes him blow up like the world's biggest balloon and then explode with blood and guts everywhere. In the third movie, you get the haunted house attraction, and there he gets half of his face sliced off where you actually can see what looks like insides and entrails, and they do a great job with that. And then he gets thrown into an industrial fan and blown up to pieces. And then in the fourth one, we get to see him sewn back together by Tiffany. Not when he does only get shot, so it's not great. But then you go to the fifth one, and he has Glenn, in the Tiffany outfit, and cuts off arms, legs, and head with an axe. I mean, what character gets more worse treatment from somebody who loves him like the writer who's been there all along than Chucky? But his kills are awesome, and you can always look forward to, okay, how are they gonna kill Chucky? And now that we have the seasons where he can put himself in multiple dolls, we get to watch Chucky die brutally multiple times. I mean, it's what you want. It's what you get. But you just want to make sure there's still one left because we need to keep this shit going. I love Chucky. So the last thing I'm going to say is why Chucky belongs in the Mount Rushmore for me personally is because this movie came out on November 9th, 1988, which is the same day that Charles Lee Ray was shot and killed, but put his soul into the doll because we see that on a nice headstone in Bride of Chucky, which solidifies for me because I was born on November 9th, 1988. So I was born the same day Chucky came into theaters, the same day Charles Lee Ray died and Chucky was born. I won't say that's why I have a connection to him and I just feel that way because we're on the same day. I've just loved Chucky since I was 5 years old. I had one of those My Buddy dolls, and I saw Chucky, and then I beat the out of that doll. Afraid it was going to come after me and kill me when I was 5 years old, but I still sat there and watched every single movie. I've watched movies in theaters. I haven't missed a single ounce of Chucky ever, and I never will. It's my favorite horror killer of all time, and I think that's why he belongs on the Mount Rushmore of horror killers. Let me know in the comments if you agree. Do you think the original 3 to be there? Who would be your 4th if it's not Chucky? I do plan on doing more with this series where I'm going to go over some of the other big names. Maybe a little Ghostface. Maybe Leatherface. At this rate, Art the Clown might actually get a little bit of a play of fun in there with how much he's moving up people's rankings. So, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe so you can see more videos coming your way. And until the next one, guys, rest in peace.